I'd like to speak about the practice and how things are seen in Vipassana. And this is the beginning part of this talk is about 3 phrases that are found in the Pali. And I'll say them in Pali and then I'll say the meaning. The first is anecca, anecchang vedita bang. Anecca lakkhana vedita ba. Anecca anupassana vedita ba. And that means, first of all, that what is impermanent must be known. Then, the character of impermanence must be known. And further, the contemplation of impermanence is to be known. So, just to note that what is impermanent is different from the characteristic of impermanence. So sometimes people use the same word, anicca, to mean both things, but actually they're 2 different things. So, first of all, anicca, that which is impermanent must be known. So what is impermanent is all the mind and matter that occurs in us at the 6 sense doors. And we discussed this, what happens in terms of the different sense processes, that there's a sense receptor, the eye, the ear base, the nose base, the tongue base, the body base, the mind door. And then there's the sense object, and there's consciousness, that together with contact and feeling. Virya and sati, or effort and mindfulness, arise together with momentary concentration, khanika samadhi. And because the mind is concurrent with the object, the yogi knows that the object appears and disappears very, very quickly. At this time in the practice, the blood circulation is unusually good. And because of that, light emerges from the yogi's body. And it can light up the area immediately around the yogi, or it can light up a whole room, or it can light up a large area. And this light is the first of 10 special tastes of the Dhamma that arise at this stage in the practice. When the yogi knows the fleeting arising and passing away of mind and matter that are related as cause and effect, the mind becomes clear, and this clear mind causes the blood to become pure. And it also causes light to arise. So the mind is also very pure, and the body becomes very pure. You may doubt that light arises, but in fact, it does. These lights are really extraordinary and exceptional. And so much so, that the yogi thinks that this is definitely path knowledge or fruition knowledge. But if the yogi thinks that it's realization of special Dhamma, then the yogi will take pleasure in it and not go any further in the practice. So, of course, instruction is very important at that time, that the teacher has to instruct the yogi not to take pleasure in the phenomena, but to observe it. When things light up in the yogi's mind, lighting up. And then also the yogi has to note what happens. The yogi has to note the lighting up when things light up in the yogi's mind like that, so that the object is known, and so that pleasure and craving don't arise, and so that the yogi's understanding won't miss the mark. Because taking pleasure, even though it's very, very subtle, it will cause the observation to no longer be so clear. Taking pleasure in the lights is what is called an imperfection of insight, or a corruption of insight. And this is one of 10 phenomena that can occur. Not all 10 occur in every yogi who reaches this stage. But these 10 are distinct qualities that happen at the stage of seeing the fleeting arising and passing away of phenomena. The second special quality, special taste of Dhamma is jnana, or vipassana, knowing, or vipassana knowledge. Now, this knowing is not the simple discernment of mind and matter or cause and effect. Although it is vipassana knowing, it's just called jnana in this context. And initially, the yogi has to work very hard just to note on a gross level and to see the mind and matter that are related as cause and effect on a gross level in big chunks. When the yogi gains skill, the yogi comes to see how the mind and matter related as cause and effect arise and then pass away very rapidly. When the yogi notes rising, there's one rising after another in a long series. When the yogi notes falling, there's one falling after another in a series. So the yogi notes, even though they're noting in a general way, rising and falling, the yogi comes to know many events. And these events are, this way of knowing, these are moments of vipassana knowledge. The yogi knows the arising and passing away of the object in a sharp, distinct way. Nothing is mixed up. The knowledge is very clear and very vivid. And these moments of knowing seem like enlightenment. Before, there was a lot of forgetting. And at this stage in the practice, there's no forgetting at all. The yogi knows whatever objects arise. The third special taste of the Dhamma is joyous interest, or piti in Pali. When we do something with an objective, we know the way to do it, and we do our work with respect and care, then surely results will materialize. So when we work a little bit and gain a little bit of success, then we feel a little bit of joy, satisfaction, and delight, which is called piti. The mind and matter that occurs at the eye door, at the moment of seeing, there's seeing consciousness together with seeing contact, which, just to review, that's the quality of the mind and the object meeting on the sense base, and the quality of seeing, feeling, at the moment of seeing, the quality of being pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. So this seeing consciousness together with the other two, contact and feeling, they know the form and the color of the visible object that becomes apparent at the eye door. And these actually 5 parts if you look in detail. These 5 things appear and then pass away. They arise and then they pass away. This joy, which ranges from being minor to very strong, can manifest as goose flesh, or feeling flashes of lightning through the body, or there can be a feeling of astonishment, like when you sit facing the ocean and you see large waves coming in to the shore and you wonder, oh, is it going to hit me? And then it's just, before landing on you, it just recedes. Or it can feel like the body is floating up, and for some yogis, it really does float. And the joy can be just pervading the body, so pervasive that the yogi doesn't want to open his or her eyes. It just spreads throughout the whole body. And because of these really unusual and in some cases very, very joyous experiences, the yogi can think that this is enlightenment. There are 7 more topics, 7 more of these tastes to be mentioned, and it will take several minutes, at least 10 minutes. And I also, I haven't made any shorthand notes, so I may at times just be reading from this. But I'll try to read mindfully. So the 4th character, go ahead. The fourth special taste is called passaddhi in Pali, which means tranquility. And this passaddhi, or tranquility, the literal meaning is that there's an absence of worry, a tranquil feeling without any mental or physical disquiet. When this tranquility arises, both the body and the mind feel light because there's no more anxiety. There's no heaviness. And further, there's nothing dirty. The noting is comfortable, and this is called kamanyata. And there are no glitches. Everything goes smoothly. So everything goes smoothly, and earlier, even though the yogi is mentally and physically healthy enough to practice, it's like being sick because there's so much pain, and it doesn't feel very cheerful. But at this point in the practice, the yogi feels fresh and cheerful and full of well-being. Also at this time, the quality of honesty, or what we call rectitude, also arise. The mistakes the yogi made in the past come to mind. And, what the yogi did at a young age, and the yogi remembers, I made these mistakes, and admits them to herself or himself, and also comes to the teachers and confesses, I did this and it was wrong, but I don't do this type of thing anymore. I'm going to live a good life. So these marks of a good person appear in a person, which is really good. When a person meditates and reaches this stage of seeing the fleeting arising and passing away of phenomena, the yogi feels it's the beginning of peace in this lifetime. And the yogi feels comfortable with lightness, clarity, agility, without heaviness, and without any big pains. So with this type of situation, it's enough to make the practitioner think that this is really enlightenment. There's a Pali verse from the Dhammapada that describes this, what the joy that a person feels at this stage, as being a joy that is not like that that human beings experience. Hearing at the eye door occurs, a sound is heard, and then it passes away. Smelling occurs, and then it passes away. In eating or drinking, the flavors reach the tongue, they're known, and then that passes away. That knowing passes away. So these experiences of joy, whether it's minor or major or very strong joy, they are still conditioned phenomena, and therefore they're not free of arising and passing away. So they are not free of what they call death. So if you reach this stage, just continue, because there are better things to encounter. You're sure to encounter a peace that is free of this being born and dying. The next flavor of the Dhamma is called sukha. The yogi feels happy, gaining this Dhamma delight. Sukha feels good. It flows astonishingly through the whole body, just the way water flows steadily from a spring. And at that time, the yogi feels happy and very good. Similarly with piti, but there's no misery at all. This feeling of happiness or sukha is it can happen in such an amazing way that the yogi thinks that it is enlightenment, but it is not yet. The next quality is adhimauka in Pali, which is faith. So initially, when we see something that is worthy of respect, the mind becomes serene. And this is the first initial level of faith. We call it serene faith. When the yogi understands that causal relationships are logical through the practice and acknowledges that they are true, to the extent one has experienced them, this is confirmed faith. Our faith is confirmed by our practice. So with this faith as a foundation, the yogi practices, and after seeing cause and effect and continuing to practice, great faith arises when seeing the fast arising and passing away. I should say that I misstated this earlier part. This confirmed faith is more of a logical understanding, and to the extent that one knows, to the extent of one's knowledge, one understands that this is true, that cause and effect are related. But after seeing cause and effect in practice, then seeing the fast arising and passing away, there's very great faith that arises, because it confirms that this method of practice is correct. The yogi feels very decisive at this point that seeing like this indicates, the results indicate that the practice is correct. I've come to experience this way because I practiced according to this method. So this is decisive faith, and it only arises in people who meditate in a way that is respectful to the practice, and who come to see the fast arising and passing away. It doesn't arise if a person doesn't practice at all, or if they don't practice energetically, continuously, or if they just read about the practice. It arises in connection with this level of insight, with practical knowledge. And the next factor is called pagahavirya. It's basically effort, but it's effort it doesn't fall back down. It's not effort that you have to, it doesn't fall down, and it doesn't stop in the middle. It doesn't stagnate. It keeps on going up. The momentum of it increases continually. And at the start of the practice, sometimes we're overeager, so we have too much effort, and sometimes we're the opposite, sluggish, and then the sleepiness comes in. But so the effort previously is not steady. But at this stage in the practice, it's regular and it increases. It's regular when it reaches the stage of seeing fast arising and passing away, and it continues to increase at a steady pace. And this seems like very good. It seems to the yogi, again, like it is special Dhamma. Although the yogi doesn't note, the effort is going with automatic momentum. So the noting and application of effort that occur are very, very good. The body comes in contact with things that are hard or soft things, rough things, gentle, hot, warm, cold, light, or heavy things. And when there's that contact, the touch consciousness appears and then passes away. So the moment of touching, including these mental, physical factors, appears and then passes away. Okay, the next two are firm sati and upekkha. So the first of these is called upatana, and that is the sati or mindfulness that is occurring together with vipassana knowledge. So this level of sati only occurs when vipassana is energetic. It's very strong, and beginning with the rising and the falling, this sati is able to note whatever object it is, consistently and steadfastly. And over time, it becomes firm, because one occurrence of sati is contiguous with the next. There's no gap in between. So it does not break easily at all. It's very firm and durable. This sati is firmly attached to the object, just like when something is nailed to something else. So that's how powerful it is. And it rushes immediately to observe the object, and it sees everything. down to small details without missing. When that sort of sati becomes quite strong, then events from when one was very young arise in the mind as if they were occurring anew. And even things that don't come to mind through ordinary thinking appear immediately, very clearly and distinctly. Just like people who have the ability to see the future see it clearly when they bring it to their mind. When the yogi gets to this stage, because of their mindfulness, the events from early life appear automatically in the mind without having to think about them. So this is because the sati is exceptional and so is the knowledge. So every time the yogi brings something to mind, the mindfulness is exceptional. Whatever arises in the yogi's body, he or she can note it clearly and completely. When the yogi reaches this stage, their mental energies have been developed on all sides. So whatever condition, physical, mental phenomena arises, that is, whatever moment of seeing or hearing or smelling, tasting, touching, or thinking, if it's an attractive object, there's no greed whatsoever. If it's a detestable object, there's no anger. The yogi is completely balanced with whatever object is seen. And the yogi notes with equanimity in an amazing way. And this, at this time, there's a type of consciousness that arises to what does it say? It considers the object. And this object turns towards the object as if it's like, what is this? Saying hello to it in a way. And this adverting consciousness goes directly to the object, immediately to the object. So the arising object and the observing mind meet head on. So because of this, then because of this straightforward initial consideration of the object, then most of the time, whatever moments of consciousness follow that initial meeting of the object, they will be pure. So this is also very exceptional at this stage, and this is a form of upekkha that's related to the mind that considers the object. So this upekkha is both the ability to observe with equanimity and also the ability to observe as soon as the object arises, so that the noting mind and the object meet squarely or head on. So these 9 qualities just mentioned arise in connection with wholesome consciousness, a pure, wholesome stream of consciousness when the yogi reaches the tender stage of seeing the fast arising and passing away of phenomena. So the wholesome consciousness becomes purer, more and more pure. And when these Dhamma flavors appear, there can be subtle craving for them. It's very subtle. The yogi might feel this kind of, Dhamma flavor never arose in me before, and now they've arisen, they're really good. So this is our tendency in this human realm. So previously the yogi's experience was gross, and now the experience is very gentle. And there tends to be an unwholesome attitude towards that, a craving for it. Even though it's unwholesome, it does tend to arise in the yogi's mind. So if it does arise, the yogi has to note it, because otherwise it can become strong and disturb the practice. And this is the one that is really an impurity of insight. It's a defilement that arises in a certain stage of vipassana knowledge. Thoughts, imagination, and so on arise, and they're not continuous. They arise, and having arisen, they immediately pass away. They are not there initially. They don't stay the same or remain after having arisen. all these events, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, initially they're not there. But due to causes, these phenomena appear. After appearing, they pass away. They're not there anymore. Delight with only a little bit of craving should be called good in comparison with delight that contains a lot of craving, but it's still unwholesome. So the yogi has to continue the practice, note the defilement if it does arise, that only happiness that is free of defilements is true happiness. And with faith, the yogi continues to practice, then the yogi will not think so highly of those experiences, but will go beyond them. And the observation won't be the way it was before, but it will become easy. It will be easy and distinct. And then the subsequent stages of Vipassana knowledge are sure to arise in order. May you all apply the practice to develop the types of seeing that can be developed through the practice of Vipassana until you reach fulfillment of the practice and realization of Nibbana. That's all for today.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
These are mental and physical dhammas, and they are not permanent. Their name in Pali is anicca. They're called anicca. So anicca is to be known. That which is impermanent must be known, and yogis are practicing to know these mental and physical dhammas arising at our six sense doors that are not permanent. So we call them anicca. Mental and physical dhammas, mind and matter, arises due to causes. They aren't without a cause. The eyes, ears, nose, tongue, etc., our sense organs and others arise due to past karma. And in the present existence, they continue to be alive because they have the present support of the mind, of weather, and of nutriment. Some types of matter arise due to the mind. Some mental physical combinations of mind and matter arise due to the weather. And some strictly physical dhammas arise due to nutriment. Also, there are mental dhammas, or types of mind, types of consciousness, that arise together with matter. And because all these things come into existence, they're called in Pali bhava, B-H long A-V-A. And these mental, physical bhava have their individual nature, and that is called sabhava, their true nature, their individual nature. And this, at the start of the practice, isn't seen. The yogi doesn't see this at the start of the practice, but we take the precepts, and then the yogi observes rising and falling and so on, other objects, when they arise. And when the noting mind becomes continuous due to this type of observation repeatedly, then the mind becomes pure. And this purity is called, purity of mind, Citta Visuddhi in Pali. When this mental purity becomes quite strong, then when the yogi notes the rising, the yogi knows moments of stiffness or tension or movement, and there can be other qualities as well. But these moments of knowing, the stiffness, tension, movement, are still linked to the abdomen, or still linked to the action of rising. They're still linked to the form or to the manner of the rising. And it's the same with the falling. The yogi notes the falling movement and knows In the same way, the yogi knows moments of relaxation or movement or whatever it may be, and that knowing of the true nature is still linked up with the form of the abdomen or the action of the rising, what we call the manner. At this point, the yogi does not yet know the stiffness or tension or hardness or movement or displacement exclusively. And at this time also the yogi is discerning physical dhammas, matter. The mind inclines towards the rising. When the yogi notes the rising, the mind inclines towards the rising and it falls on it. And when the yogi knows that, this is knowing mental dhamma. The yogi does not know the mental dhamma and the physical dhamma simultaneously. From time to time, the yogi knows the physical dhamma. From time to time, the yogi knows the mental dhamma. And while the yogi observes the abdomen rising and falling, the yogi comes to perceive the object is one thing, knowing it is another. And this knowledge that arises directly through observation is called discernment of mind and matter. If the yogi continues to note, then the yogi comes to know that the mind arises because there is something to observe. Sometimes the rising disappears while the yogi is noting it. And then the noting mind no longer arises to note it. Only if the object arises does the noting mind arise. If there is no object that arises, then the knowing mind does not arise. Through the direct observation, the yogi comes to know, because of the object, the knowing mind arises. If there's no object, the knowing mind does not arise. And this is what is called knowing cause and effect. If the yogi continues to note and know these, continuing to observe these rising, the qualities of the rising and falling, the qualities of stiffness, hardness, tension, movement, the yogi sees that these qualities that are related as cause and effect arise and then pass away. At the start of the practice, the yogis don't know the ending portion of these qualities of the object. And Vipassana knowledge only arises when that ending portion becomes apparent. The yogi notes the rising, the beginning becomes apparent, and the duration and the ending of the object are also known. When noting the falling, the yogi knows the beginning, the duration of the object, and the ending of it. Heat or warmth or stiffness or tension or aches or pains or solidity, these qualities arise in the body, and the yogi knows them from the beginning to the end. And knowing like this is what is called knowing anicca lakkhana, or knowing the mark of impermanence. That is, what is the mark of impermanence? Having arisen, it ends, it passes away. So that is the characteristic of impermanence. These three parts of the object, the beginning portion, the duration of it, and the ending portion, or the beginning moment, the period of duration, and then the ending moment, are what are called the conditioned characteristics, or sankata lakkhana. So this beginning, middle, and end of the object, the characteristic of it being a compound conditioned phenomena, it becomes apparent on its own. So in meditation, it's not something that we deliberately try to observe or that we work to create. It arises, the perception of it arises on its own through our observation At the start of the practice, initially, the yogi knows the middle of the object, the duration of it. When the yogi practices and comes to see the causal relationships between mind and matter, the yogi starts to see, in addition to the middle, they start to see the beginning. When the yogi continues to observe the factors of effort, mindfulness, and concentration, virya, sati, samadhi, become energized. And then the ending of the object also becomes apparent. Be that as it may, the yogi simply must follow the instructions as that when noting the rising, the yogi has to stick with the rising movement from the very slightest beginning of that phenomena until the end. When noting the falling, also, the yogi has to stick with the falling movement from the very, very beginning of it until the end. The purpose of noting in this way is not to know the beginning, middle, and end of the object. The purpose is to know the object fully, for the mind to reach the object fully. So only when the mind reaches the whole object can it see the true nature of the object. So that true nature called sabhava is like the flavor that is in a bit of food. But when we chew food, when we chew it carefully, then we know its flavor. Whatever flavors are in that, the flavors emerge from the food and they touch the tongue. And when we drink something with awareness also, the flavor of it will become apparent. So the flavors are in the food that we eat or the thing that we drink. And it's the same with the mental and physical objects to be observed. They have their own individual qualities which are like a flavor. And when we stick with the object from the very start to the finish, observing it with concentration, then we come to know its specific characteristic. So focusing carefully on the rising and the falling from the start to the finish, the yogi sees that the rising comes to an end. And the falling also, when we observe the falling, we see that it comes to an end. And some yogis who have good observation, they see that these phenomena, rising or falling, they occur in segments. But whether that's the yogi sees it as a whole or in segments, the yogi sees the ending of the object, and the yogi knows the ending of this phenomena that arises and then passes away. When the yogi sees the ending of the phenomena, what do we call it? This is a question. The phenomena is anicca. Okay. When we see the ending, what are we seeing? Anicca lakkhana. The characteristic of it. Okay, the phenomena, in English it's much more clear, I think. The phenomena itself is impermanent. The characteristic of impermanent phenomena is impermanence. So in English, I think it's a little more, to my ear, it's more clear. Okay, so seeing the phenomena is seeing anicca, and seeing the phenomena come to an end is seeing the characteristic of anicca, the anicca lakkhana. After seeing the ending of the phenomena, there arises in the yogi's mind, falling is not permanent. After it arises, it passes away. This is a type of knowledge that just arises due to having seen the object come to an end. And this is what is called contemplation of impermanence. Anicca-nupassana in Pali. Right. So it's not reflective knowledge, and it is called anicca-nupassana jnana, or insight into the anicca-nupassana means contemplation of the characteristic of anicca lakkhana. And this is a type of knowledge that arises. When the yogi sees the ending portion of the rising, for example, the characteristic of impermanence becomes apparent. So knowing the ending of the rising while observing it is called anicca-nupassana jnana, the contemplation of the characteristic of impermanence. The characteristic of impermanence is one of the universal characteristics of conditioned mental physical phenomena, and this knowledge called anicca-nupassana jnana is a type of knowledge that perceives this particular universal characteristic. It's called in Pali samanya lakkhana, and the characteristic of anicca is called a universal characteristic because all physical mental conditions pass away after having arisen. None of them remain after having arisen. Seeing arises and then passes away. Hearing appears and then disappears. Smelling appears and disappears. Tasting appears and disappears. Touch appears and disappears. And it's the same for heat or cold or warmth, stiffness, tension, movement. All these things appear and then disappear, or arise and then pass away. If the yogi is able to see all three of these types of characteristics mentioned, the individual characteristic called sabhava lakkhana, things like stiffness or tightness or relaxation or knowing, and then the compound characteristic of having a beginning, middle, and end, and then the universal characteristic, samanya lakkhana, such as the characteristic of impermanence, then vipassana knowledge is sure to arise. So it should be noted that in order for vipassana knowledge to arise, the yogi must see the ending of individual true nature, and therefore true nature has to be seen directly. The yogis have to come to see true nature through application of the practice. When vipassana knowledge starts to arise and the yogi has overcome pain, that is, no big pains are happening at this time, then the noting becomes good. And whatever object arises, the yogi can observe it. And even also, the yogi can observe fine details. At this time, after having come to perceive the cause-effect connection between mind and matter, the mind is especially pure. And due to continuous noting, the effort, mindfulness, concentration, what is called the samadhi kanda, or the concentration group of the path, is present. And because the mind is concurrent with the object, that it's sustained on the object, then the yogi knows the true nature of the object. The five factors together of virya, sati, samadhi, vitakka, and panya, or effort, mindfulness, concentration, aiming, in this case right aim, and panya, or right view. These five factors make up what we call the fivefold path. And this path precedes the noble path. And this fivefold path at this time in the practice goes very swiftly. And also the yogi's sila, the morality, is pure. So there aren't any gross defilements arising. There's no actions or speech due to defilements.